Contention what is out today. Trump's flurry of executive orders is imperiling the independence of the NRC. That's destroying confidence and preventing effective implementation of Trump's nuclear goals. Burns is 25. Keep yourself first down on lost expertise and knowledge cannot be replaced with such a film without rather than experts White House. Intervening decisions should be technical and intensify concerns having circumventing NRC jurisdiction, centralized executive mind, independence and authority, rules bedrock cred. Transparency, certainty, are based time. It couldn't be worse. Advanced reactor moving forward. Many states anticipate critical challenge attracting capital investors strongly versus uncertainty and liability, negligent processes, predictability, and breaches of independence result in opposite demand. Skyrocketing licensing requires scarce expertise. Productions undermining inflection point for industry generate chaos and timeliness cannot be overstated. Distraction effect. Delay licensing critical for reactors, but ability to export tech engravers on the country's trust advantage for U.S. nuclear and independent NRC of doubt. Credit no longer partner in harmonization, seed international markets, competitor with adverse implications for security interests. Only expert implementation unlocks Trump's nuclear agenda, solving climate change. Toro on 25. Whether Trump working environment, not so simple to climate, big favor, populism, organized front, electrified Russian renewables, carried rest on thinking push, picked up steam on their way to square energy motivation, nuclear only tech to get us to zero. Exxon is a disaster, optimistic case for Trump, which climate crisis, wind, solar, nuclear green, politically attractive, sustainable, decarbonized reactors, order magnitude, better, coming out with a philosophy within decades. Trump remembered for death, now philosophy, politics, animal legacy to odds with the text of global warming ensures multiple pathways to extinction through non-linear feedback loops. Spangenberg in 25 effects warming underestimated harvest harvest agriculture cascade restoration ecosystems proves impossible adaptation fund gives surpassing capability trade wars resource wars that increase our colleagues about water level human life no longer possible oceans acidic effect entire food shell species collapse new pathogens emerge loss of pollinators reduce food engineering creating conflict threat nuclear escalation is growing independently a biased NRC increases risk of nuclear accidents top in 25 energy shall hold nuclear accountable for warning accident safety take vaccine right caps word essential political severe crucial accidents some leadership right towards national pride wars accident result of Fukushima failed to deploy countermeasures safe operation requires independence and independent regulators and public confidence relies on unwavering dedication to safety. U.S. a global leader in new practice nuclear fires ensure extinction from direct radiation and killing underlying ecosystems. Musso in 16 largest disasters Chernobyl fire released 400 times more radioactivity than Hiroshima low dose radiation result in low pop produced biology best assessment were not in direct empirical observation animals are more sensitive than believed to discoveries help prevent accident absolutely needed to protect humanity also ecosystems that sustain all life. Contention 2 is energy. Nuclear energy unlocks natural gas exports it stabilizes domestic global energy markets preventing price increases. Cohen in 25 Trump's guarantee to supply LNG reversed by pod LNG essential geopolitical lever expanding exports impact domestic energy prices balance with nuclear to maximize benefits ensure energy security American gas alleviate supply risk markets happen in America's energy more experts restoring up price for energy where reducing supply of the U.S. demand is rising as energy intensive tech like AI adopted data centers 1% of demand skyrocketed 21% by 23 nuclear reliable highest capacity sources baseload stabilizing domestic supply maintains lower prices supplement energy supply enabling benefits of exports high electricity prices collapse sustainability of AI development loyal and 24 revolution AI heralds new age of tech is only a key electricity prices low power requirements are staggering Google alone more than many nations triple by 2027 America is at the forefront of every tech innovation reason has been abundant energy coming to an end deterrence collapse is inevitable absent AI to close operational gaps for detection attribution otherwise adversaries escalate in gray zones in hybrid war lynch and 23 while they remain sound operations difficult to detect and distribute challenge efforts to implement AI better detect and distribute reduce challenge of insurance insurance hearing strategy to muscle capability credit calm credibility not without detection attribution China Russia increasing potential military high credibility heightened emphasis on gray zone hybrid and info up lower to credible U.S. defense due to ambiguity China Russia Iran no cookies U.S. all direct distinct proxy actors multiple domain cyber ops real with the U.S. attack 1,000 on incidents many more are reported many more certainly follow Russia dependent as the most effective tactic especially military doctrine trying to target critical infrastructure flow of Al-Qaeda attribution also obscures attacks and help understand which events are significant distributed actions current advances give protection capabilities help delay collection and physical and digital domains far faster than human for the hypothetical example is Project Raven Army Air Force Space Force most promising is in future military use for decades to improve collection CNC with advertising avoid detection increase probability of accomplishing goals and decrease cost of victory undermine deterrence detecting option operations allow to plan and prepare diplomatic economic or military response to reduce enemy success or increase the cost coordinate response to allied states who believe they do not have first mover advantage are less likely to engage in offensive operations independently energy diversification prevents great power war low in 23 energy demand company complex scarcity exacerbates conflict into the large scale geopolitical wars competition leading factor in triggering global conflict with and diversified supply mitigating risk of competition finding energy reduced GPR comes to energy concern and no linkages received attention to outbreak of geopolitical conflicts global threats and hotspots are primed for miscalculated escalation from energy and security heat in 22 global security issues increase arms race extremism internal breakdown Syrian civil war Israel Palestine and rest of Africa Iran Sonoco China Russia and others take advantage of disorder increase in escalation become unpredictable energy security major concern demand increase 50% competition leading instability from Arctic to Middle East South America SES escalate to end conflict to control access exacerbate wars mutually reinforcing future geopolitics feature unstable environment which compete aggressively for energy conflict around the world wars between great power rivals involve nuclear cyber and space weapons devastating attacks all out contention 3 is exports the U.S. has controlled international protections of nuclear energy but is losing its edge absent leadership they cede control to Russia and China whose unsafe practices allow non-state proliferation coercive diplomacy Carlos in 20 U.S. state regime established norms promote peaceful use of nuclear energy U.S. that decline emerging workers rely on Russia China create strategic disadvantage nuclear supply by U.S. dropped to 8% Chinese and Russia made a different position to supply others create U.S. promote security settling experts Russia and China drive value safety engagement lead to security challenges in countries most vulnerable nations that work with the U.S. and here to safeguard Russia lower barriers do not prioritize countries nuclear inadequate due to limited resource restructures vulnerable to capture. Debt trapped with diplomacy unable to repay reactor partners. Venice stop supplying operating maintaining again. Leverage during crisis nation is able to scrambling to secure SNF. Nuclear terror risk extinction spirals through multiple vectors that overwhelm all defense haze in 18. No ports of nuke terror leads to trouble coincide with other drivers attack. Affecting an unpredictable way along multiple paths reporting system trip calculus reception time compressed decision making anti-3 generate zero combination rate ambush state already heading for one non-state actors with capacity to protect nuclear threat represents chaos non-state nuclear attack catastrophic exchange not several precipitate massive exchange non-state actors motivated and able although requirements to present high bar certainly reachable diverse and motivated groups exist conditions that generate such expand hypothetical 80 planet attacks no region with immune no year without threat to any state call the dirty bomb overlap with crisis delegitimate national leaders max average during crisis when leaders already overextended catalytic of non-nuclear war if non-state actor aligned with a state cascaded NC3 system shift state toward use releasing negative controls multiple action reactions spirals attack on keynote of early warning system states managed risk in relation with other states non-state actors attack without warning presents uncertainty do not seek same goal some dismiss possibility history suggests otherwise council will stand and win but succumb to tide multiple events interact lead mind system fail each state move in response to nuclear attack response to accreditation style states and will perceive it and respond as well as receptive to the enemy state sponsor attack nuclear leadership prevents illicit marketplaces which guarantees great power war while leveraging the U.S. to effectively leverages diplomacy Miller and 22 nuclear exports free rewards the tools of statecraft to influence behaviors helpful to solidify land project influence high value and scarcity making impact important system to critical signal of intent towards partnership exert leverage opens channels of decision making for decades generates leverage beyond nuclear preferential access to shipment ideal for transactional diplomacy nuclear requires special skills countries lack expertise makes recipients dependent leaving them vulnerable and coercive develop threaten to hold back materials use training gain influence over trajectory of nuclear programs lowers risk of direct competition with great power states supply sensitive tech to help the enemy acquire nuclear weapons rather than great power rival protect from this by some nuclear compliance with safeguards creates avenue for direct military call without targeting rival U.S. diplomacy averts great power war otherwise claim of regional riots guarantees extinction Ashford in 25G emerging from weakness that Putin will is undergoing significant changes far from the transition to states U.S. failure scenarios in which U.S. overextend their many there are other countries managed to transition embracing multiple areas winning allowed to nurture rising other actors create back policy makers took opportunity to pursue grand crusades to kind of balance manage the world rather than transform or reconceptualize from hegemon to shared leadership maintaining acceptable balance of power preventing rise of regional hegemons potential for catastrophic great power pursuit of privacy no longer worth the candle diplomacy itself is key back in 25 pairing diplo has to do with mill readiness sentiment signal prompt aggressive rather than the rise of the rest trends solidifying U.S. as social power but threats loom key to success of diplomacy the U.S. just have to strength by connection through diplo exchange to standard aggression means peace is secured through sustained investment in diplo and reach independently Russia and China's build on FMPPs cause extinction Sullivan in 24 BO FMPPs carry ultra hazardous cargo converted nuclear weapons environment exposed experience widespread contamination catastrophic threats accidents spread quickly pose global risk health of species devastated unique among dangers FMPPs combined to advantageous fights by marine shipments and terrestrial installations whether in collisions exposed environment travel through Russia to specific exposed lead to water time increase damage marine environment catastrophic incident create radioactive steam transform airborne dispersed globally attractive targets for pirates and terrorists eastman which nefarious actors board Russell Russia apply to Southeast Asia heightened terror risk greatest threats and revealing at FMPP carry hull of wasted ocean tips safety mechanism malfunction risk catastrophic incident will increase potential for human error causing a meltdown plan the United States federal government should restore collective bargaining for nuclear regulatory commission workers in the United States contention for solvency Trump's deregulatory agenda is catastrophic for nuclear whose existence requires expertise and institutional stability Northhouse in 24 for defenders capacity skeptic coming to test whether and I'm emergency bureaucratic obstacles to deliver radical downsizing underway rational method deeply challenged nuclear projects slash work create more uncertainty result being more model the catastrophe chunks of bureaucracy disappear without being missed elsewhere reduction have significant impacts at the NRC breaking things is easy need to clear path to deliver cheap nuclear Trump has realized that and wants to expand the workforce Patterson and 25 deploying nuclear required energy to grow Trump says extra result and cuts more difficult to deliver goals lost sense of employees energy is going to be growing in coming years goals not to make tiniest NRC president anticipates energy need to grow to accommodate increase in apps energy face conservative industry constantly high and continue to do so but doesn't understand the importance of collective bargaining rights for the NRC alignment in 25 Trump's also on energy collective bargaining have devastating impacts on retention and recruitment it's something all negative studies underestimate Games 25 do Edmund reduce autonomy change protection leading increase in errors lower quality info lack of expertise personnel and reduce personnel increase turnover more positions subject control empirics demonstrate independent agencies have greater capacity energy argument independent agencies no more expert however agencies with significant authority are the deciding factor is non-centralized environment Lofthouse in 24 defenders of state site importance of expertise at university false important qualification expertise reliable only certain environments highly centralized power fights inadequate ecosystem size governance which the NRC is but the agencies their ev is about are not Gibson in 22 agency-based centralization follow trends highly technical agency NRC report low levels of centralization correlate strongly with the influence alliance with expectation energy so in very low in centralization Trump reported higher centralization it's not too late expertism is key for independence and credibility on in 25 USC trust with the energy Trump undermined independence lead expertise not too late experts foundation upon which nuclear rest critical point support reach new heights and competence of regulatory process most research technical capacity little margin for error little time to reseal conceive production by judges extra tools are here.
Okay, fifth. Normal meetings, is it a court ruling?
A court ruling, well, we don't think like, the plan says USFG, so we don't think like picks out of individual branches compete, but most likely means, normal means would probably be Trump undoing his exile.
Alright, so exactly that. The diplomacy intern link, how do you access it?
Which one?
The one on advantage exports diplomacy is key.
Yeah, so the reason we access that internal link is because it increases the credibility of US diplomatic leverage through nuclear. It also makes people more dependent on US
Why
energy.
is that?
So it
why
makes
is
it more
that
like,
all other US credibility?
because like, that was sort of the second thing I was getting to. The more countries are dependent on US energy, the more like effective and credible our diplomatic standing is.
The other internal link,
Like,
sorry,
why does that mean that countries believe us on other things not related to nuclear?
there's the reason that it spills over is because of partnerships. Nuclear is not only valuable but scarce, which means that it's a credible signal and powerful leverage. The Miller card literally says, quote, it sends a credible signal of the intent to forge a strategic partnership. It means a strategic partnership across the board because it says it opens channels to elite decision makers and, quote, exerts leverage, quote, for decades to come.
And so that means that diplomats across the federal government, including in the DOS, now have more credibility.
Well, it means they have more leverage, certainly, but I don't think that's like a question
It's
of our
not
internal
about
link
US
solely.
diplomats, it's about export sending a signal.
Yeah.
Okay, why is Trump making the NRC ineffective now? Like, why are CDRs key to make sure that people can just do their jobs?
Joanne?
3 reasons we think. The first is politicization of the NRC. We think that his XOs have sort of put the NRC into a
Well,
spotlight.
he's
where
still
they
the
shouldn't be.
president after the act
Second-
happens. How
sorry?
do you solve that? How do you solve that?
Because CBRs are key. Second is
But why?
centralization. The 3 cards at the bottom of solvency indicate that centralization is the determining factor for whether or not agencies are
Like,
able
what does
to
that
leverage
mean? Why are
expertise.
CDRs key to it?
Because they negotiate for things like denying politicization and having the autonomy to
Okay,
implement
so
their own
that's,
policy and
I guess that's
avoiding
the first thing. So
centralization.
the argument is that they would literally change policies to resist Trump, and they would include that in
No.
bargaining
Oh.
contracts?
Okay, CBRs in the status quo have always included political autonomy and
Yeah.
policy autonomy from above, from agency leaders, from Trump, from the president, etc. That's what CBRs have always been for the federal workforce.
We've
So
also
they
already
rely
been-
on science and
Okay,
research and
I guess
expertise.
what's the first one? Politicization, whatever. But
The
this,
second was
the first, I
centralization.
mean, the F actually doesn't fiat. Does the F fiat that Trump abides by those agreements? No, it just gives them back their rights. So how do you
It's
solve Trump
destroyed
just
CBRs.
politicizes inevitable?
Well, we read an advantage that says Trump realized that removing CDRs for NRC workers was bad, and now he wants to reapply.
And we wrote a card that it's not too late to reverse those things. Which was the last card holding.
We're gonna take that into that.
I didn't think you were ready.
I was worried about it. I would go through, yeah, no, I got it.
Do you know how many NRC workers are unionized?
How many are unionized? Well,
Yeah,
any of
like,
them can
which-
join a union, and right
Which
now none of them
people
because
that
they've
have
got
particular
CBRs.
jobs are unionized, and how does that relate to the functions that you think are good?
Which
for the
workers
NRC?
in the NRC are unionized? Is that the question?
Yeah, like what
Well,
kind
okay.
of jobs do they perform?
For example, the jobs they perform include licensing. They include licensees for nuclear reactors. They include safety checks at nuclear reactors. It includes decisions on who and when and how to export nuclear technology, for example.
Okay.
There are more things that they do. They do a bunch of shit,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Alright, that's 350 used, so.
1210.
Yep.
I don't know if the height doesn't work for you, but I think you're welcome to use Steve's stand if you want.
We got special luck with this one.
And I'm not gonna.
You got special what?
Special.
Oh, special superstition.
That's right.
It's Northwestern entities. So,
Oh,
um,
damn.
Goodbye, Damien.
sorry. Okay.
Can I use the superstitious Northwestern stand, or does that take away the magic?
Yeah, it does.
It takes away
Sorry.
the magic, unfortunately,
Okay.
but.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Experts advantage, exports advantage, energy advantage.
Say again.
8, and then the experts advantage, the exports advantage, and the energy advantage.
Okay.
You're welcome, everybody.
Give me a second.
experts, yeah.
Pretty good.
There's a part of this document that must have not saved or wasn't sent out, so
Sorry, what's the case order again, one more time?
The experts,
Yeah.
exports, energy.
Okay.
Sorry, is there like a format?
Wait,
Yeah,
sorry,
it's fine. I
you're
just
sending a
sent
new
it.
one, see?
nope, not a new one. It's just cards at the bottom that didn't save. So
Okay, cool. Anyone not good?
Wait, yeah, I'm waiting for the new cards. And those should go at the
Sorry.
bottom of everything?
Yeah, forgot about that. New cards in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hold on, I'm waiting for the new doc, or new cards, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
no problem.
I still don't have it.
Coming up.
See if you don't have it yet. Okay, I just got second doc.
Do you have both or?
No, but I also don't look at them, so it doesn't matter.
Do you want
I
the solvency
did just get the second.
on the solvency sheet, or?
No, no,
Yeah, just at the bottom of the
bottom of the energy.
Okay.
energy.
Okay, anyone not good? We're gonna start. First off is applicability workers and those in a formal employment relationship to Hands 15, defining workers, defended workers, personal engagement in employment, working under an independent contract, as which the personal labor for an employer violation, federal workers are not employees, vodka 19, employers of person in business affecting commerce, not and government employees and employee of an employer in a business which affect commerce, vote neg 1, gone, this app avoids every topic controversies, wage benefits, strikes, and military labor are unique to the private sector, debates only education viable, but they evenly split debatable resolution 2, limits federal workers, those are the top of the topic, too many niche agencies to pick from, next off is substantial number of workers being 2%, equivalent to 8 with documents of association labor status for workers over the top 2% of workers being self-employed. There are 170 million workers in the U.S. There are 25 to 70 million before workers amounts to 170 million. Violation. The plan covers 2,675 workers, which is 0.001%. Vote neg. For limits, hundreds of tiny apps give CBR to 20 people. Apps size have clash and destroy the neg. We support the key debate impossible next to the capitalism. It's unsustainable. Incompetence in the conversion of existential risks. 725 limits the growth of forces undermining essential conditions of humanity. Alternatives want to see the dominant needs of reorganizing existing water food damage visually declared to the collapse systems. Determined by complicated cascading effects of limits of growth resulting in uncontrollable decline of renewable minerals. Metals or rocks, sand, and fossil fuels will lead to their first destruction, bodies, and ocean depletion, their following biochemical, geochemical, sexual land use. Novel systems in water, ocean, and surrogate exceeded accumulation with forces against acquisition for lack of capital, debt, and competitive pressures, block development, evident in latest water shifts, limits, innovation, leads to tech disasters, system reaction, type disasters, increase impact on the natural water, accuracy, connection, innovation, peace, engineering, AI, energy, reduce under pressure, large under pressure, complexity, makes companies difficult, complexity, abuse, instability, water, energy, chaos, costs, especially about this spreading community, high risk crises, combating including poverty, refugees, pandemics, vulnerable. See the crisis about regulation, public and terrorism, conflict training into permanent crisis, voting over water, running apart, accident reaction control, global testing, and motion, climate change, suffering, enforcing material disability, even the absence of zero warning will become ever become power, lead to offline, let people begin self-fulfilling prophecy, pursue interest, and control of situation, claims, waters, and resources, crisis, and capitalism, impact humanity, more good than facing internet crisis, including geopolitical conflicts, wars, multipolar, reminiscent of a situation led to World War. The planned sanctions of extension of wage labor that legally and ideologically sustains capital, the alternatives work to control of the government, refusing collective bargaining, to propagate alternative economic regimes, market mergement to the regimes, and connection to unionization within capitalism, democratic socialism, post-capitalist economy, by the infrastructure undermined by examine how institutions control workplace and be construction not specified with ideological effects implemented principles and processes defining wage labor policy, and the overthrow the NLA, protected unionization, labor revision, creation of ideology, forcing the continuation of capitalist institutions strengthened through legal collective bargaining, transformation, and wage labor, oath makings, and capitalist work control, enterprise, wage labor, incompatible with legal democracy, subordination, inherently violates derivation of citizens, beholden to others, collective body fails to achieve the degree of diplomacy, the democracy, should controls government supplies of capital to labor brings democracy only in one quality of power capital is neutralized, master key is the recursion of all corporations, markets, independent institutions, even if enterprise of cooperative control. Next up is the CBR picked the United States federal government should repeal collective bargaining rights for workers, increase hiring and funding for federal agencies, establish just cause protection for federal workers, fund and staff the Merit System Protection Board, and establish it as a sole adjudicator of federal labor disputes, and strengthen with support anti-discrimination and other civil service protections for federal workers, and enforce merit-based hiring of federal workers. CBR is not key, so defaults they establish any without collective body agreement. Workers have benefit from far reduced protections under civil service taxes more than most private sector, and they retain right to full rights, protection, and ability to unionize by one fundamental whistleblower protection laws. Soon at all 20 adopts particular laws. These laws allow workers to bring and enforce enforcement action and employment laws, those can shield individual workers and retaliation systems. Also, employment limited restrictions, even workers are covered by arbitration. Next off is the ILO counterplan. The United States federal government should file a complaint to the International Labor Organization's Committee on Freedom of Association, arguing that it restored collective body for legal regulatory commission workers in the United States. If ESC have a complaint, revitalizes the legitimacy of the ILO. Section 25 U.S. in violation of the ILO civil complaint makes it clear unions provide unions with advocacy domestically and internationally with the U.S. answer for unions file complaints exposed to employers to liability, reputation risk, including leverage, crisis could spread nationwide global enforcement, advantage, materiality, necessity, collapse of enforcement, force the issue, sending a message of the findings of political weapon to force labor reform. A constant concerted policy efforts to revitalize the ILO is necessary for stabilizing developing countries. Such that ILO 20 concerted policy actions can do incorporate inclusive and sustainable development. The ILO provides guidance in the management of global crises, workers, health are factors in employment, sustainable economies, and development. The ILO responds to countries need to implement through the national authorities to support the need for increased awareness of health is needed for development and implementation. Development is a risk filter that outweighs and turns every impact. 122 development is an indicator of tech and power disadvantages and of poverty. Benefits in the future in reducing vulnerability to risk and conflict. Countries can be educated and participate in institutions that boost quality of governance and navigate against risk. Reducing risk from pandemics, instability, poverty, diseases, income, improves health and invest in farming, population resistance to pandemics, poverty, cost, instability, terrorism, and crime. Next off is the ACA subsidies will pass now. Clement 113. The House passed a bill passed last week would initiate a long-term, along with the bipartisan push to make healthcare affordable. After 17 Republicans joined Democrat senators will reconsider bipartisan legislation. One Republicans vote cranes. Bill sent to the Senate. AC's probably Republican rulings include throughout California and state where Trump will premiums jump dramatically. The bipartisan group of senators meeting in hopes of crafting and compromising closing agreement. Healthcare is way too expensive. Congress sees the moment extending tax credit by time for a bipartisan committee to focus. It feels possibly optimistic. We need to one that needs to be done. It could work. Labor policy is highly contentious. Fractures Congress and trades off with other agenda items. The executive links specifically healthcare. Q 25 labor reforms based on output by the Obama administration. Democrats believe had to pass healthcare use of political capital. The Act ACA failed to vote on the Employer Future Choice Act to remove employment illegal legislation of the own party proposed a lot of provisions of political liabilities. Liberals election to advance the party line based on the negotiation with Republicans. The strategy hit out single opposition failure. Republicans control both chambers and international power. Cutting AC 70s causes the pandemic outbreak. Law 25. The cutting and reducing technical contribution international mechanism enable identification and containment threats. The account less content for the ACA and partly losing coverage of pandemics for heroes. According to preventing outbreaks of pandemics volume. Non-packaged effect rule important community first. If the local system are unable to protect outbreaks quickly, consequences escalate the protection of everything from food illnesses to outbreaks. Extinction. McLaughlin 25. Pandemics needs to be mitigated. Problematic which stands too many points of flare-ups. The pandemic of which responses are individually zoonotic boundaries to control from less creating several levels. Pandemic interact with because of social ecosystem risk systemic increasing globalization and connectivity to globalization extremists to entire ecosystems. The experts advantage. One turn scaling up nuclear energy across the essential with renewables. Some code IDL 20 nuclear test rates is scale associated negative renewables that show the intensity makes mutual exclusion. These creates a lock and path dependencies across the each other mutual incompatibility and intelligence that takes transmission to pieces of grid optimize the power destruction and make it more difficult and costly to introduce distributed renewables same issue of norms protocol operating those extra courses to make these work. The finance markets and regulatory institutions of public structure and large scale baseload long-term construction not handle whatsoever the small distributed initiatives and super good power elaborate information about the safety security waste management policy tends to silent resources attention from other new options. The momentum for renewable energy is strong now. This filed to resilience collapse causes cascading blackouts. 25. Decreasing jeopardy from environmental consumption and separate plans and centralized power, increasing vulnerabilities microgrid attack practically through resilience while decentralizing energy to solar, wind, and with battery systems. Microgrid installations have spread and offer reliable power lines reliance on the aging main critical infrastructure benefit. Attackers seek to attack traditional networks and energy systems and microgrids like the areas spreading cascading flow due to large market deployment. Has shifted beneficial across various applications. Governments investing in microgrid for landscape shifts and microgrids represent a fundamental step in decentralizing generation safeguard critical infrastructure and any crisis scenario. Grid collapse and civilization. Christopher 25. Should avoid the modest civilization left with water and power less until the lights the foundation of survival supported by power grids, fragility of power infrastructure, instantly records, and taking probability bomb with multiple detonations, sensors, establish solar first, half winds, which are critical systems can fail. Most likely question isn't if you face crisis. It's which one how to prepare you be solar defense cascade to a system like digital welfare civilization once this prepares balances one. And the other increasing difficult to make. Two, even a limited expansion nuclear power destroys the biosphere, the planet, gives uniqueness for us because nuclear powers won't be nuclear power plants will not be built absent collective body rights. 24 nuclear weapons all the concurrency, even limited expansion, aggravated environmental and ecological risk due to radioactive materials, nuclear and inevitably resulting risk in environmental impacts. All nuclear reactors have risks of severe institution intrinsic characteristics. There's nothing that benefits the definition of safe effects by weather and weakening of regulation by lobbyists. Accidents produce contamination that reaches across space and time expanding production was resulting in growing radioactive waste. No matter what kinds of reactions are used, don't temperature waste to safely mention. There's a result in reacting materials that continue to contaminate the biosphere and then the contaminant activity to reactors and mining contaminating allowing water around the world. The exports advantage. One, no impact assurance solves. But Commission 24 does not follow high price conflict between resources and enable countries to see how the kind of adverse involvement in nation conflict because they can countries have the conscious even if you wouldn't costly infrastructure be ever for investment on right. All of the section risk required 2. No deterrence breakdown. Heading to 24. The Third World War between U.S. Russia, Iraq, epoxy, influence political economic warfare, loving lifestyle, public U.S. weakness, worse in Russia, providing civil severe science, specific public mismanagement, economy, Russia, Iran, deepening public raising policy, legislation, less like vaccine, send to find out the cheap without risking cost reducing to ensure domestic security and reduce discontent. 3. There's no impact evidencing that AI will revolutionize warfare, so we can do evidence. Now, the energy advantage. 1. Concede the plan. Assure to Alex that U.S. commitments are strong and reliable. U.S. structure providing Japan a window of opportunity. And rate 12, 14. The defense expanding defense industry, membership policy of feedback, geopolitical isolation, striving to appeal Washington for its priorities, culture reliability, emphasizing self-reinforced instruments, strengthening again, room, regional security, private China's president, given the justification for expanding military presence, opposition, Japan a window of opportunity. Japanese conventional rearmament deters the Chinese invasion of Taiwan, which goes to nuclear milestone 1223. Japan replaced military power and contradictory political proximity, suggesting military action against Taiwan for the of Japan. Japan would destroy Chinese convention against Taiwan, using military diplomacy in the Pacific, whereas enhancing survivability of Chinese movement. And the central second mountain security ability of Chinese Muslim would complicate Chinese conflicts in action against Taiwan today, beach and cook, keep Chinese position on the regional balance nuclear. And this is 25 invasion of Taiwan, probably make crisis including threats, cheese, and the supersede factor against central political efficient hands on the outcome nuclear use possible. Mark it, nuclear use possible.
Wait, which card did you mark?
Anderson 24. Mark that nuclear use possible.
Yep.
Okay, you good?
Mm-hmm.
Status?
Status quo is always logical option.
Can you kick butts?
Yeah.
Okay. The CAPK, what is the impact to sustainability?
It mentions multiple things. First, environmental collapse. Non-renewable materials are being eroded now.
I don't like need the warrants, just like what are the impacts? So
Okay,
environmental
so
collapse.
environmental collapse. There's like a bunch of warrants in that which.
I understand. I don't want. I just want to know what the impacts are.
Okay. 2. Tech disasters.
Tech disasters.
And 3. War.
Okay, you read impact defense to all 3 of those things?
No.
War.
Where?
Defense to warming.
No.
You said deterrence is
Didn't
stable.
read that in the one.
Okay, merit-based hiring of federal workers. What does that look like?
So instead of getting people and hiring them based on their political affiliations, we would hire them based on if they're fit to do the job. So like they have to be an
And
expert
how do you
in
determine that?
nuclear energy. The federal government has a merit system in place. They just haven't used that because of Trump.
Okay. The skips.
I skipped the automation DA and I skipped the flex DA.
Okay, I'm sorry. The politics DA. What Ed says there's bipartisanship in the Senate sufficient to extend subsidies?
The quote, bill would head back to the Senate. ACA is broadly popular. Enrollees include 3 out of 4.
Well, yeah, but that's about like it's popular in the House.
Next line. No, that I just said Senate. A bipartisan group of senators have been meeting in hopes of drafting a compromise. They're quote close to an agreement.
Well, okay, but this card isn't like what.
No,
There's like
it's
a
Senate.
certain number of senators who like support, but not like what Ed says it'll get past the finish line.
Calendar.
Okay.
They're close to an agreement.
Sure.
Senators will quote consider or
yeah,
back.
I got you.
Okay.
T workers, what like your evidence is about like private sector, like people in the in the context of like private sector definitions.
Well, which card?
But back up. Like it's like
Yeah.
like with the NLRA and OSHA, like those don't cover federal workers. Why is that a predictable interpretation of the topic?
Because those are laws that cover workers and employees. The
Wait, so to
federal
be clear-
labor statute is not. It's not about employees and doesn't use that.
You skipped the FNPP term?
Yeah, didn't that.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep taking prep. You can keep asking questions, I guess, okay?
I'm not gonna have that.
Wait, do you think the politics link is 4 times if you said focus, or just?
It's not 4 times. It's 5.
Just 5.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Jim, I'll try to.
Yeah.
44 used, so if I do some math, that would be 12, 15.
12, 16.
Amen. I was doing 45.
That was a lot.
That was what?
That was a lot.
I was gonna just round it. But yeah.
No, that was a lot.
The walk-off, yeah, that, I did kind of.
That was insane. Shit.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna use the rest of what you said.
Oh, I think it's
Oh, just kidding.
But, oh, okay, probably.
You can do it like,
Oh,
you
okay.
can take, it's fine.
I don't feel like taking up the time or anything. Also, just like flow check, I think that their answers to the exports and energy advantages were flipped. Like you put no energy wars on exports.
Yeah, I might have gotten the names wrong, so
Okay.
if that's like.
Can we all, you're floating on a computer, so can we just put the like no energy wars and no deterrent stuff on energy? Because that's where like the 1AC stuff is. And then the like allies turn about diplomacy and stuff on the exports advantage, because that's where the 1AC put that.
So just like if you need to do the
Yeah, like I do believe that the 1NC order was experts, energy, exports. Is that no?
Fucking disaster advantage names. Okay, this is all fine with me, I don't care. You,
Okay,
The like no impact
Yeah.
to energy wars is
Yeah.
on the energy advantage.
Yeah. So
And the like diplomacy alliances turn should be on the like diplomacy nuclear exports. Given
yeah,
that one's about
yeah, just change the name of cells.
Okay, great.
that is fine.
Okay, I just want to clear that up. Now, before.
Can we go back to like 1, 2, 3?
Sure. We can hit a 1, 2, 3. We can also.
No, that's not helpful at all, because now they're,
No,
like,
I'm joking. I'm not saying you can do that here. Just like in general.
no, they have the names that they have now.
Yeah.
They should not be changed again.
You don't like the names?
Well, it's three advantages with words that are the same length that start with E.
Well, I thought that was kind of the fun of it.
No.
I downloaded the 2AC term.
What happened in the meantime was that we have realized that the 1NC misnamed the advantages.
Oh,
So
no,
we
experts,
just-
exports?
No, energy
Energy and
exports.
exports.
It's not a problem other than just,
Yeah, like the no energy wars
Whatever.
card, I'm gonna answer on the energy advantage.
Could we
Not,
call them 1, 2, and 3? Is that not?
I vetoed that
Yeah,
because,
you
because
said
the
no.
1NC answered them not in 1, 2, 3
That's
order.
the wrong.
So,
Wrong.
Sorry,
I mean, there are impact terms.
So could you just say that the order?
yes.
Okay.
The other way to do this is for you to describe the
Yeah,
arguments
okay,
of each flow.
yes, okay. The 2AC order will be
Yes.
the experts advantage, which was advantage 1, where they put the NRC turn with the grid.
The
and
nuclear power
the-
bad
yes,
term.
the grid, okay. Then that advantage proper, like our impacts.
Sure.
Okay. Then the energy advantage, which is the one about AI and deterrence and energy wars. That's where they put like no deterrence, heat,
Yep.
and no energy wars,
Got it.
that serve
Got it,
validity
got
or
it.
whatever.
And like no impact about warfare from AI, sure.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And then
Yes.
the exports advantage, which is the one about diplomacy and FMPPs, where they put this like Japan, schma,
Fine.
Taiwan. T substantial,
I'll permit the editorialization, but continue. T substantial first.
the word schma was that too far.
Yes.
Then T
Speech
no
time.
fed workers,
T substantial, T federal workers.
CBR pick, ILO recommend counterplan, CAPK, politics.
Do I have just a couple of these up there?
This might be too much, but we'll
Thank you.
Hold on. Yeah.
Okay, so give me a moment to open it. Okay, Northwestern is good.
Everyone, sweet. The Great Journey is backwards. Only the case solves one. Experts, Trump expansion of nuclear power, justice, reliability, 425 more weather-dependent renewables, more volatile, Trump industrial crisis, just no lack of flexibility, no domes, energy abundance is non-negotiable. Second, energy, nuclear addresses AI strain on the grid. Otherwise, blackouts are inevitable. Baiting in 25 people before the grids under strain with AI expects to advance to double by 2030. Take company fund. Power grid priority one mitigate carbon molecule reliable side nuclear companies Microsoft restart 3 Mile Island, no star. Nuclear power, no other culture powers under construction. Immediately Google move on settling agreement. Trump taking to accelerate the human regulatory process. Independently, nuclear build-out triggers the expansion of microgrids, which solves their internal link factor. These microgrids all utilize not only renewable but also diesel gas nuclear power source of microreactors support the capability of microgrids. 3. Exports. Adversaries make global nuclear power inevitable, which triggers the impact only a risk that U.S. development is safer. That's Carlos. Their internal link is bunk. 1. Crata is a myth. And nuclear is a prerequisite. Callahan. 25 grids of global plasma about nuclear energy visibility. Dr. Shock exporters challenge with the renewables is recent after station conventional plasma right. 3. Revenue solar doing off the same stage. 50% renewables. 20% nuclear capacity commission reactors. Like green the nuclear stabilizing force nuclear regardless of whether harmonic mining nuclear renewable way. Often the most practical path technical ways for keeping nuclear hard to ignore. Second, no uniqueness. Trump is dismantling renewables left and right, so only nuclear has a chance of inevitable. Now the Sophocles paper is riddled with flaws and Crata is bunk. Gilbert in 20 balance for villager and organization policy and equivalent nuclear cover free Sophocles nuclear concept renewables into an mutually divisible nuclear countries also renewable countries like has major flaws. Sample size only 30 lakh statistically significant to be expected as the implementation on a coastal study of emissions and symbols and the results country nuclear power industrialism a larger midfield offer explanation by the numbers of renewable nuclear simultaneously study against 2014 concepts competition for nuclear companies to pursue both for countries of today's sports importance of nuclear country conclusion projects are there the China reduces solar also nuclear destruction of nuclear competition and decarbonized energy. Now the biosphere impact is wrong. Nuclear might not be perfect, but it's tried. In 20 there's no restrictions industry because the nuclear the government is building a new market and crisis and new countries all resource industry switch because there's about safety designing reactors material safety storage and nuclear energy safety management and safe innovation and safe risk profiles fairly especially related to climate change and much more safe and more resilient. Plus unlikely accident mark that as accident advantage proper climate change causes extinction non-annular feedback loop trigger food and water shortages body loss ocean acidification more even if not directly it cascades to disease and wars that are prefer evidence risk to quote constantly underestimated in spending for cites consensus scientists also drop nuclear accidents they ensure extinction low dose radiation prevents breeding produces biody and upsets ecosystem services prefer evidence existing data is based off of wrong predictions. That's so the energy advantage. Now the energy wars impact defense is wrong. Global energy wars cause extinction. 1. Lack of diversification. It triggers competition scarcity mindsets that for fear that one supplier will go down. That's the U evidence. 2. Lack of secure access that increases the risk of mishelp and arm raising via competition for energy, which escalates into global conflict. Their evidence is wrong. It's about higher oil prices, which is not our impact, which is about the lack of diversity access. Yes, deterrence impact raisins and hyperwar makes deterrence collapse inevitable because it's scarce detection attribution. Only AI can collect, classify, and predict. That's the Lynch evidence. Their Heath evidence is wrong. Doesn't assume hybrid and grazing warfare, which creates deterrence gaps and operational gaps. Only AI closes those. If they extend this, zero is the terminal impact to most of their dissets. Also, the other warrant in this card is no aggression, but it's wrong. Every judge had the explicit doctrine for gray zone info and cyber ops. China, Russia, and North Korea have already all used them. You should air app because most go underreported. Yes, AI impact or evidence says we're already trying to use it like Project Maven, but needing energy to support it. Exports. Nuclear terror causes extinction, exasperates existing crises and targets entity through which causes retaliation is calculated use before evidence. Hayes says it's systemically underestimated. Now the FMPPs cause extinction, nuclear material, and waste in the ocean, which means there's no safeguards against accident collisions, and pirates even small releases while global, which is the Sullivan evidence. The turn is wrong. 1. No link. The YC said the opposite of link, and never said our military commitments are reliable. The advantage is about unchecked pursuit of privacy now, which causes regional war over influence, which the plan creates energy commitments. 2. No reason Japan stops conventional rearmament. They don't have a reverse causal card that says they would stop, which means this isn't a turn yet. 3. Japan will never rearm political opposition in history. Demonstrate this proposed. 4. Other countries armament solid like Taiwan invasion and SOCO, which ensures Taiwan military stuff. 5. No impact. China would never invade Taiwan because they know that the US would lose. They would prefer to de-escalate. Also, here's an impacty card. Oh no, that's pandemic. No Taiwan invasion. Gordon in 24 considers Taiwan over 1. Taiwan is available. And card for us about it internally as much as was on the world of attacking on Australia precisely. Rather than making investment reforms and exponential vulnerability, giving us support diminishes. The T. Countership substantially references actions that directly prevent or permit bargaining when made in 21 to be considered substantially needed relation with the proposed unions for the bargaining sector held the circuit was directing substantially no operation prevents unions from collecting bargaining non-determined substantially advice. CPRs prefer 1. Legal precision McMahon is core precedent. That's key to access predictability and board making burns turns their offense and avoids race to the bottom. 2. F-ground artificially making apps bigger makes space unbeatable and core controversies aren't necessarily the biggest. 3. No offense comes with small ass. Explode limits and ground plus functional limits like states Trump and the CAPK reasons to believe is best continue jerks cause race to the bottom. Crowd substance. The Simopoulos evidence has no intent to define. It's just includes self-employed workers, which isn't predictable anyways. Topicality, no feds. We meet FG as an employee level Department of Labor, no date, national employee, the federal government, federal workers are employees, CFR 25 employees, sub individuals over 18 USC 1207 is an employee of executive branch, the agency and the plant text the only ejected standard countership. The correct law defines CBR as an employee ejection and the emphasis on estimating the right of federal employees to collective bargaining findings, obligation to union bargaining conditions of employee affecting such employees, workers in the US. Actually, no, that's best. 1. Predictability, prefer justice to actions to their arbitrary interpretation. No, the wrong law. 2nd ground, there's a ton. Private spillover links, half the media reads it because the NLRA is useless. Now, the Johnson evidence is only about franchising and only for the purpose of that law, which matters because it's about the private sector. VACA is also only about OSHA, which doesn't speak to federal workers. CBR pick. perm to the counterplan, perm to the plan, and every combination of links. It links to the net benefit because obviously it causes politics, and if it solves the gap, it links to the NRC turn and the impact turn, which means this literally has no possible net benefit. CBRs are key. 1, expertise, only CBRs. Journey to willingness to share expert opinions and stay positions, that's better. In 25, chill, inflation, marketing, expenses, to from my turn, attorney file, because they suffer anymore. I sit fewer expertise, says agencies have less control, more for like the NRC, PC, water investing, people study, kind of great capacity, building, remove appointees, educated, over 1,000 schedule procedure for the speakers of the impact services made like unlivable. Second, independence, only CBRs protect the autonomy that lowers errors and increases information, otherwise political control models and methods, guns of perception alone is sufficient because workers are fearful of Trump's specificity matters. NRC is uniquely centralized, which makes expert capacity more reliable. Repeal CBRs does only links to that benefit, which because it would probably cause political backlash. Now funding solves nothing. Trump didn't cut it, only staffing, so it's useless, and hiring is a status quo, but fails without CBRs, which is the internal link. Also, the merit and just cause protection fails. Merit is and the training part of the is model like federal heaven says doing formal practices. Mark that practices and whistleblower was not the plan, but fails without Robertson played whistleblower protection laws. The federal circuit did not stand refuse violated refuse to hear. Mark that refuse to heal. ILO. Perm to both, it shows linked and a benefit. Perm to the counterplan. Perm do the plan as the outcome of the counterplan, and Perm could recommend the ILO over other issues. Counterplans result in the after cheating, steal the app, solves nothing. 1, ILO says no, cannot say 19, ILO commissions by 2. The CB does not apply what was in the state. Second, sovereign immunity means no liability. 3, SCOTUS strikes down Anderson. 20 for the court sees that observer removal episode of court executive power duty. The ET wants to play the attack property grounds limitation. Court sees unconstitutional versions. Trump says no and has more leverage than the ILO because he's the one that took away to begin with. But there's no benefit. There is a huge commitment for most countries in the world, and a new convention is key, which doesn't solve only the app does. Russian Chinese energy declaration or a bigger internal link to foreign behavior, but no development border. In 23 development records, the economic version economics use the board to protect capital laws, the fails to materialize many places to be used to prove the prosperity versus record of development. We're at development, CapK. Framework valid is referendum on the plan's desirability. Links mostly calls it unique with a solvent better alternative. Anything else already be moves to 1AC, that's procedural fairness. And in-depth clash, perm do the plan and perm do both. If that severance perm do the plan, not mutually supports of the alto 1AC is a prerequisite to the alternative. That's Roberto intent of social party methods, revolutionary transition, energy access, waiver proposed clean energy pipelines, the origin of Disney, was include nuclear power, radical construction of industry, housing transportation, again, relation necessary to translate capital, because social stake on the social planning, we need nuclear power to base for much better for the environment, renewables, to bringing this one decentralized radical distributed, humanizing nuclear. The diplomacy scenario is a descent to the alternative because it means other countries fill in, which causes all impacts. No sustainability. Sierra 24 the aim of study is to investigate the influence of innovation, carbon price, and the growth of emissions of the period 1996 to 21 positive structure, carbon prices, and found out carbon emissions 1% change of carbon prices, also 1.168 decrease in carbon emission findings, economic theory, higher prices, and 5% down. Clean technologies and reduce emissions. Mark that at emissions. The alternative, their sustainability card says that tech innovation undergirded by expertise is good and solved. So it justifies the permutation. Berenberg explicitly agrees the odds not mutually exclusive and says that criticism of CBRs just says that it should be the permutation instead, but it fails and does not solve sustainability. Westward in 20 years, electoralism is a very negative way to approach socialism. Much more critical than the forms of birth to get examples of classes and on case for obviously closer to socialism. Has been an idea that socialists seem to be as parties. Capitalist neoliberalism not interested in against socialism. Socialism never working with the state and organized for capitalists. Devin capital law constitution not formally in the state of control of global capitalism system working with the state. And institutions that they're never going to concede it causes transition wars because Trump will crack down on the alternative. And if it fiat's mindsets or private actors or internationalism is cheating because no comparative literature exists, which is bad for fairness in class politics. No length of plans the executive with shields because it cannot hurt bipartisanship, won't pass this. Person who takes the House, unlikely the extension would pass the same like in the Senate, and Trump would veto it even if it did. And no override vote. Subsidies pass the House but fail in the Senate. Scription 26, House voted the best in Senate, the AC, Subsidies, release the Senate, is not expanded past central. Part of a long running battle, laundry list of thumpers, were given. 26, Congress, and medical challenges, with showtime, healthcare, and I've seen progress, status, selling, majority leader, receiving push around a year, Mark Johnson, had been provided work healthcare, including Obamacare will certainly fail in the Senate committee on opposition and healthcare roads, designed to subsidies, also bring the filibuster and talk to the fight. Deadline Republican Georgia staff control with Epstein parties continues and follow for references funded as a political football, no pandemics impact that's ordained 20 pandemic false for threatening many biological theories is just pathogen related to extinction or anti-relation infections, lethality, rarity, intends to become violent and often violent. Some cases against like from pandemics false record actors of 0.1% for centuries incompatible with evidence following many species of life to be a healthy revelation of percentage of medicine and understanding of disease. Mark that X.
For clarity reasons on case, where did you mark the Gianti card?
Gianti?
I wrote down accidents, but I'm not finding that. So that might
Less likely that an accident could result. So mark it the word accident. But to control F, you should control F. It's less likely that an accident.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see.
And I marked it there.
Sounds good. Okay, sorry.
You had 1210.
Yeah, 12:10. Can I get Kiri?
Sorry?
Can I make sure we got Kiri?
Oh, the alternative, if it's mindset, private, or international, and then counterplans that
Result.
result in the F.
Okay. I'm gonna think of questions.
you read the Stockton card
Where?
on the NRC trend?
Hold on, I don't know which one that is. My document was like the
It's just like no grid.
I did not read. No. I'll just scroll through that last one.
outstanding. The order is the T subs, T 2%, potentially 2%. Then the exports advantage, which has the Japan term. And then the energy advantage, which has the AI and deterrence stuff.
That's the order, right?
That is the order.
Okay. I didn't know if you were gonna keep going.
No, you're good. I kind of sounded like I was going to say more.
Did any of you debate or hear or see Donnie Grassi debate
No.
at Kentucky? He would do this thing where he would stand there for the truancy and just say, okay. And then the counterplan.
I'm going to take that. I like that.
Hold on, I'm waiting for the doc. Is there one?
No, there's. Imagine.
Oh, could have just been like a whole lot of tea.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm not. I just got it. Okay.
Alright, we're all good? Awesome. You give us a full Substantial means the plan needs to affect at least 2% of workers in the U.S. We have chosen lowest quantitative threshold we can find. The choice is asking you to just ignore that substantial is in the topic now. The impact is limited to allow hundreds of squarely apps to blow up the topic. Single agency, fed workers, single company, core ruling, single industry, single state, or single city apps, all permuted by different mechanisms, constrained could be conditions, oversight, etc. And there's truly nothing in their counterinterpretation that would stop you from judging the North Dakota Catholic Nurses app with the NDT. There are 441 federal agencies. Assume there's cards for 10% of those. That's 44 fed workers apps alone. AFP 25 federal and 441 18 the U.S. government limits outweigh its key to clash, which acts as every benefit to the activity is operationalized. Skirting the topic undermines that ground for choice, fairness, which is an intrinsic good to debate. Now, I'm going to answer in a vacuum. On the other page, it's bad. The interim tax and cross-tax help one skew. The apps more often predictability to AC to kill. Nuance clash testing reports 2 winners, 2 limits, make anything topical, and 3 predictability. They chose the words anything else tantamount to lying. They obviously don't mean because the plan only affects 0.001% of workers, which is totally incontestable. Now, our interpretation that a substantial amount of workers is 2% prefer evidence of contextual labor policy from a PhD in economics writing in a peer-reviewed journal that's in a sophomore. We're the only team writing records about substantial number of workers. In the many 25 substantial person over total workers over 2%, the 2% threshold is the only thing that prevents substantial from being meaningless. Even all 18 substantial can be given an amount is more than 2% without 2% regard. Many would be characterized substantial, even though the contradiction is no impact in the minimum, including make rules, practical, enforceable, anything less than not substantial. U.S. Code 2 benefits with regard to the value not more than 2%, the value of the state 2% net value. U.S. substantial intended to find by enforced substantial refers more than 2% substantial. Must be at least 2% words increases 60 substantial because under 140 for expenditures, which expenditures belong to make substantial activities. Now I'm going to preempt the 1 AR. This is that strengthen, modify that substantial modify strengthen CBR. So obviously the question is how much CBR strengthened. Our argument is that to find that out substantially should be measured as a proportion. That's what I say. Don't let them fool you with grammar hand waving or granting CBR to workers who don't have it now, which tacitly accepts giving new workers rights and strengthening, which means since substantial modified strengthen is totally fair game, but it doesn't mean anything because they could permute it by a ton of mechanisms, which was a limits overview. Now 2EC1 is counterinterpret links to the limits. This that allows an explosion of cases. That was an overview. Ask yourself why what isn't included in their counterpretation. Qualitative definitions need crafty 2As find a way to make the app and meet their vague standards. Solve none of their often Supreme Court jurisprudence says substantial must be quantitative. It cannot be case by case when followed by other percent modify. What is substantial to Jimenez at all? 17 Supreme Court substantial to quantitative, not qualitative. For the court of relative terms that isolates qualitative no first in the context reverse to a quantitative feeding can determine substantial modify the phrase atomic and grant valuable structures to apply substantial person and control support decline of all the cases specific from confused saturation case from the courts out how or courts are precisely determine important actions that directly prevent or permit bargaining is nothing. Literally anything could prevent a union from collective bargaining, and it's also not a definition because it begs the question of what it means to substantially prevent. So refer arts, but the Tweezy did not say quantitative definitions bad, so the winner does not get to do it too. Now 2 AC to its precision, 1 wrong. We just read a bunch of cards saying the Supreme Court precedent is neg. 2 our interim is more predictable. It's the context of labor law that's one season of soft more evidence. Road 23 the CBS to priority rated level 2% of records all substantial gains from stock rights in the context of strengthened CBR broker. And all 24 of the primary units from stock rights is determined as long-term collective bargaining rights to the regulation of substantial mechanisms for grappling work for equal in place right at least 2% of the workforce. 3, debatability outweighs there's always some inaccuracy due to competitive incentives conduct in the case. It's better to have a functional activity that's not accurate enough than critical environment of academic mockery where each debate is decided by a coin flip and for what's predictable or precise is not based on definitions, it's based on community consensus which evolves, and this is a high profile debate that you can influence the consensus and thus what is predictable by voting against this bullshit. Now, over limiting, next argument is after on wrong. 1, no link. We just had a limit for how many people you need to cover. That pertains ton to room for flexibility. Here are all the industries that are still substantial under their interpretation. We're going to insert a chart, and the Big 5 workers app still topical because it's 2% and still 25 and make up at least 2% of the total workforce. 2, zero risk of making this topic too small. No one ran or out of arguments on healthcare, and there was only one topic mechanism, plus the number of policy debates we've had so far is about whether unions are good or bad can be counted on one hand. Someone needs to set a precedent. 3rd, it's just wrong. No one is a labor expert. This field is deep, and it's pure hubris to assume we've researched all labor law for over limiting good force advantage. Mechanism innovation facilitates deep precaution testing, which are better for all. Debates benefits and thought and grant outweighs the deaths out bias and the get trouble advantages. Choice in last page. Now they said picks 1, no link. 2% does not automatically mean any picks compete because this is not T-hole resolution, and but 2 is fair. They have built an answer certainty signal and confusion pertaining to arbitrary carve-out. 3 picks are good. They test plan balance around betters and counterplan the upward. Don't want either. Just shorts ensures they lose the theory, or if they're good, they're interval growth then because you can't write a pick to an unpredictable plan. Twisty 3's functional limits. 1, they're designed to be substantive reforms. They're 100% workable. That was above because they only affect 2,000 people. Now, single strategy is still increasing asymmetric advantage because precedent or agent dependent and agent dependent politics is 0 different from an advantage counterplan change based on agency history is negative. Limited topics produce better debates and states illegitimate is beaten by a single card because any act could have a deficit to the counterplan and Trumper kills every dissent. The double bind is irrelevant since Campy doesn't compete and econ does not link to small app 2 solvency after it's not a thing. You don't care as cards. Just needs to obliquely mention collective bargaining and judges checking. 3, lit does not check single articles exist for everything. You ask can not be fact checking, can't check if the neg doesn't have any ground out. 5, reasonability, whether or not reasonable. If they write the topic and lose with their own standard. 2, it's bad cause arbitrary judge intervention kills fairness. 4, key is substance lawyers prove. And competing in terms of specificity cause the raise to the top by encouraging best practice. The last argument is our evidence has no intent to define, sure, whatever will win. Debatability outweighs, but it does at least define it in the context of workers. And we read a ton of definitions about the diplomacy term. The turn outweighs absent company strategic autonomy. China will feel confident about launching invasion. Taiwan will escalate quickly to true U.S. intervention that guarantees extinction to nuclear war spark by first strike on either side. That's Anderson. It outweighs every after impact because the U.S. and China have the largest arsenals and internal link turns everything because all their stuff is about credible U.S. deterrence. Now, U.S. drawings guaranteeing Dartmouth 1224. China's have to the U.S. after the military numbers over extra U.S. military and confidence security tax that being tech time like with 50 similar operations corrupting U.S. ability to mobilize China's security destruction effects extinction. Con 25. Are you reading this one? The one hour? I think so. Now the link.
No.
Oh, that's fine. I'll read it then. Cyber events critical obstruction, increased nuclear isolation, absence of orientation, undefined pathway to escalation, race accidentally integration, blur. The lines of work tactical and remains, including nuclear, which internal interns also all their miscalc stuff because we control the internal link to it better because China is the most likely actor to use it. Now, first and no link. Wrong. Fortifying U.S. foreign policy dissuades Japan from conventional buildup. They have forwarded the premise that Trump is sending unreliable signals to allies and that U.S. credibility is broadly declining. And then their solvency argument is that reinstating civil servants in the NRC and nuclear leadership broadly reassures allies that the U.S. is a credible partner who can come for our defense. Our evidence says that directly trades off with Japanese pursuit of strategic autonomy, which could recall when I see cross-sticks, they fell for the reverse pit of doom and cannot go for no link. Joanna says, quote, it increases credibility broadly because countries know they can depend on the United States. That spills over to U.S. credibility because it provides, quote, leverage and single link. So no link is totally silly, but yes, trade-off. Plan A is the U.S. alliance, but only if backed by a credible administration. Plan B is conventional rearmament, build avert. After the plan reassures them, Arrow 12 child plan with the deeper alliance with the U.S. and U.S. committed for a president is the role is one of the plan ministries to autonomy or use for Trump to be where he serves as Tokyo brain. All of Japan states will look for policy after U.S. attempts to strengthen domestic production equivalent and let's look up for living into the cause when public opinion remains supposed to give focus on conventional trends. Other allies feel in Arrow 12 called in a transatlantic relation, even if members of version and friends between Indo-Pacific, European Union, Japan's foreign partnership with friends other than the U.S. Now, mark that evidence at the U.S. Now, the next argument is no rearmament now. Wrong. U.S. shifting priorities and geopolitical isolation that prompted Japanese momentum to pursue their own strategic autonomy, including massive defense spending and eventual build-up to turn China that's rooted in Sichuan. They didn't read a card about this, so I'm not going to either. The one in the evidence speaks for itself. It says, They don't like the way that Trump is treating them, and that means that they're going to pursue strategic autonomy because they don't think that U.S. commitments are solid. Now, the next argument was that rearmament is inevitable. Obviously, it's not inevitable because the plan would tell them that they don't need to rearm because the U.S. is just broadly going to deter China anyway. And the next argument is that they're not going to rearm, which doesn't apply because they contextualize it to nukes or scenarios about conventional rearmament, which our evidence says is definitely likely, and they definitely link because the Beckley evidence in 1AC says, quote, diplomacy is key because it promotes outreach, which is just a tag, and the rest says that involves strengthened connections through diplomatic outreach, which re-highlighting I inserted above. Now, conceded that stronger Japanese counterstrike Canadian control broad defense capabilities in the Pacific deterred Taiwan invasion by denying China a quick victory, the only scenario in which they succeed, and impact from the strong U.S. China confrontation causes extinction minus 25 to 50 confrontations U.S. and China versus significant many wins depth on the content of vertical magnets fair after because rank the creative human and device for their evidence is misplaced optimism. Beckley 24 of Chinese and French was on the word to nuclear armed terrorists and version 2 by conflict brain time to play the largest vulnerability stop and fewer three vulnerability step as what conflict nears market conflict nears, and to the extent that they think that broad hedges good or that they solve that, I don't think they do, but our evidence says that strong decoupling is broadly true across the world, which is a strategic status quo counterpoint that solves the broader scope of offense. U.S. credibility with allies declining now. Creel 25 U.S. becoming reliable beliefs that allies begin decoupling later to protection recognize their influence with the South next after the return to world path towards clear military unit here and nations spending with accelerated defensive South credible targets and some say called for a European army market army.
We had 12, 16. You're good.
No, I'm taking a second of that.
Yeah.
Okay. That was 10 seconds.
10 seconds?
So 5:55.
Yeah, let me write that down. Okay, we had 12, 16. You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to start with the link to this Japan term. The 1NC card you read, which you were like, this card is amazing, I'm not reading any new cards.
Yeah.
It says that Japan is, their rearmament is, quote, alongside the United States. And it says that their movement to enhance survivability and restrict China is, quote, a component of U.S. defense strategy. I don't understand what Japan does on their own to deter China.
Yeah, our 1NC evidence is great. It says that Japan is currently using boosting GDP spending on the military, etc. Our evidence says the reason they're doing that is because they have doubts about U.S. credibility. It says it creates a, quote, window of opportunity for them to strategically rearm, which is key to deter China.
You highlighted Japan modernizing CNC. The sentence is the United States and Japan have been investing in measures such as modernizing CNC.
Yeah,
what card do you have that Japan alone deters China?
What that is referencing is when Trump told Japan, hey, I would like you guys to, be kind of strategically autonomous, that would benefit us, would benefit you, because Japan is effective at deterring China.
No,
the second piece of evidence says that conventional deterrence is effective against China because it increases the geographical scope or hurdles that they have to win. China thinks they can only win a Taiwan conflict if they do so quickly before the U.S. can intervene.
I understand
the reason they wouldn't make that calculation is because they know that Japan has now conventionally...
That second sentence, where's the card for Japan, or China perceives Japan and Japan alone's conventional capabilities as a sufficient deterrent? Because as of the 1NC, you have only read a card about Japan's partnership with the United States.
Totally disagree. Quote, these steps could significantly complicate China's calculus in initiating a full-scale military action against Taiwan.
These steps is referring to the United States and Japan have been investing in measures.
Nope, it's referring to modernizing command and control structure, fortifying the islands. Those are all things that only Japan itself can do.
Okay, topicality. The argument for debatability outweighs. The warrant for that was only community norms.
No, that was an argument that predictability, that definitions are not the only thing that shape predictability, and rather that it's community norms. And so voting negative in this debate does shape how other debates change, but we shouldn't get into ticky-tacky debates about what definitions do or do say at the altar of a completely and unlimited topic.
Okay, and your contention is that the full Federal Workers Act is topical, correct?
It is. We read a card saying that federal workers are actually exactly 2% of the federal workforce because that's 3.5 million workers. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. 950.
Okay.
Yeah.
Politics.
cap K. Then the CPR pick. The energy, the CPR pick. The advantage with the energy turn on it, that like the nuclear power bad turn advantage, which is the energy advantage. Right? Sorry, whatever name it is.
Those are experts.
And then the advantage with AI deterrence failure.
Okay, wait. The last two things was the NRC term disad thing?
Yes.
And then the advantage about AI and
Yep.
energy. Okay.
Yep.
One sec, let me just tabulate.
Yeah.
Does anyone need to order it again, by the way?
Let me just confirm.
Yeah.
It is politics, ILO, CAP, CBR pick, experts, energy.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't downloaded it.
Yeah, just let me know when you're good.
I'm good whenever.
Good.
Alright, everyone good? Concede no link, Trump vetoes, and no disease impact approves. There's no offense here. The critique concede. Tech innovation solves. It doesn't take out the term because we have specific offense, but it means that energy independent, energy dominance is inevitable. Concede permits competition team for the counterclaims. Also concede no development, so there's no offense even if the solves the terminal impact. The energy advantage. The impact is dropped. Trade collapse outweighs the case. Disrupting critical infrastructure undermine the fabric of civilization failures. What cascade and share with the vital services as sustained human survival as principle. It outweighs. It goes global and is faster on time frame because even if warming is trying to die, it goes faster and means that we won't have time to worry about warming in the first place that way because you only have you have a risk to try another day, and we have mitigation to try or die. Scaling of nuclear power locks in the centralized electric grid and actively trades off with renewable space microgrid and technological development. 1. Transmission infrastructure, putting a grid with the associated power lines, transformers, and distribution systems from large-scale power generation facilities like nuclear plants is technologically incompatible with decentralized renewables. 2. Policy nuclear requires a specific regulatory regime for safety, power generation, and pricing that locks out renewables. 3. Employment, engineers, and technical experts working on renewables will get drawn away onto nuclear projects. 4. Financing, VC, private equity, and private credit money all go to high in the long term the nuclear projects instead of renewables. No, that is all one and see. So look, the card just says that it's imperfect. They don't have no better warrants that prove that there's no trade-off. Author index only matter if they have similarly qualified evidence. No grid reliability. The one see evidence is buy-in from the private sector is key, which I'm inserting for reference. Without industry buy-in, even if the government is trying to do renewable energy stuff, nuclear still crowds out, which is reliant on the private sector. AI is not key to components. One, its uniqueness is priced in. Microgrids are now successful. Governments are investing in projects now. Niche industries have deployed technology to bolster preparedness for disasters. That's G2. The card evidence is highlighted like a haiku. Does not say grid failure. More evidence for uniqueness. Projects run by use of distributed resource continuing growth, utility, business, neighborhood support, using altruistic integration, including solar panels, batteries. Provides us how we cause risk volume, have to rely on secret generation, so micro configuration, so it allows for supply, steady supply of energy. DR programs allows utilities to balance supply and demand, often a more stable and efficient grid. Incentive programs will lead to growth in the DR programs here, such as backup and shipping more resilient, future ready and resilient ecosystem, revolutionizing the energy landscape. 2. Solvency. The evidence says that it relies on SMRs and nuclear plants to solve. Every SMR in time in history has been an abject failure. June 24th, history of SMR reactors is a failure, but around 8 approved, unreliable, and expensive. 17 building US office been shut down. Magnos reactors in the UK also shut down. 3. Smart acting all shut down. 4. Japan all shut down without exception. Small reactors costing much of the results. Although weapon and poor performance cost of Russia plan increasing flow. China drop plants and manufacture 20. After cost space higher than conventional reactors, plants racing have dropped. Economic disadvantage. The sector of the Argentina's reaction has been disaster. Treat all of their SMR evidence as nuclear boom terrorism is shameless fact because all of them have failed. Their author indictment is wrong. Centralized power only serves to prop up political control. Reject their authors because they are shows for the nuclear industry. And centralized contract extinction, Washington 16 ability, skills defending the nuclear power, just defending nuclear power, protecting the critical power, and corporate control, the real powers will come the order, the energy supply competition with decentralized good and these nuclear burners, decentralized good, place on solar wind, and the nuclear fossil industry, not ecologically sustainable, do not mean that the decentralized unique cannot, even if we can actually survive. The card was marked too early to make a link turn argument for them. All it says is that the author's limitations on their study are not perfect, that is insufficient to constitute a link turn argument. They don't have an alternative theory mechanisms for how the incorporation would work. Microgrids, one line about could use microgrids, so it's nothing burger. The 2 are fundamentally incompatible. That's 23. The nuclear power plant system discourage investment in nuclear energy, saying flexible application in the grid. The opposite of what the nuclear wind and solar makes sense. Extreme rigidity and incompatible. Modern flexible grid system we will have to supply by renewable energy. So companies offering renewables in reverse function of the balance of the nuclear offer less powerful. Less nuclear power means more incentive to go for renewables to nuclear. And plus the delay in nuclear renewable energy. Don't find the arguments to believe the obvious is all packed of light. Investment link institutional lenders will scrap capital plans and the perception of the planet law, which is proven by Australia. That was a card above nuclear key. Yes, straight out. That was above renewables. Don't need baseload power. The product was 22. The last one nuclear support is baseload, which justifies system also rely on whether nuclear is opposite system, nuclear renewables, nuclear don't mix well, what system renewables not. Base load is flexible, and was ramp up flexible niche, enable supply provided by source, smart grids, and demand management, ability of nuclear power to work out. One of the reasons why flexible renewable development has been like, plus nuclear sucks ass at providing base load power anyway. Hamilton LS23 can nuclear is reliable, before use base load nuclear side and reliable, and the reliable optimal in 2022. The half of fences, 36 reactors not available, climate change likely to increase. Cooling of cooling nuclear power plants, the flexibility of the base load protection requires a balance. Renewables wrapping up a nuclear plant is slow to cost protection of a nuclear disaster to slow back for wind and solar and such. Unique, this is disproven by the first code that was done above. Unique says that Trump likes renewables, which is dead card that they read because it says that the Trump administration would increase renewable investment. Global is irrelevant. RDA and impacts are about the U.S. and how critical and cyber attacks are happening to our impacts. Regardless, shift to renewables is happening globally, which is above. Accidents impact is essential, which they said in the 2AC. We have a straight turn to that. Unique said impact are 100. They said that you cannot build nuclear reactors without the plan because the NRC is so imperceptibly bad. Their investors won't invest in it, which is the insertions that it did above. The internal galleries and time frame and only renewables can solve warming. Science, clear renewable energy only happen to ensure the long-term future of civilizing climate, clean water, and air, clean renewable. Projections today will meet the entire national demand for 2035. Nuclear actually trades off of it. And renewable solve now. Expanding nuclear energy destroys biodiversity and trashes the environment, regardless of tech or innovation. That's our modern evidence was litany of warrants. One accidents are intrinsic to the design of nuclear reactors. It cannot be engineered away. Renault says it causes contaminants to propagate against space and time. Greater reliance makes catastrophic evidence inevitable. Globally, 2, waste is inevitable byproduct of any nuclear reaction, and there's 0 proven ways to safely manage it. Leakage, spills, dumping, and bits happening on nothing that's Armada. And as far as straight peak uranium, that people only for the uranium resource are finite, they may only last another 10 to 15 years of current consumption. As much basic fuel shortages are highly debate, and water the industry makes into the civil legislation, which is close to fair range versus particularly groundwater contamination. The 2AC card was 2 lines, and it was marked way too early, so we get new evidence. Now, advantage 2, new terrorism possible. Military 1, the terrorists extremely simplifying irrational and instructive, unserious, and defend the negligible, etc. by terrorism with warfare, more killed and drowning in bathtubs, old AQ. Material performance like you want terrorists to turn nuclear that have one except gun anti not only fail the ones that no one's gotten near. It is marked yet near and no internal link to the Middle East. All of you are failing to engage in it with Iran, no Middle East war, which is not above, no Russia war not to 25 to North Africa, have no appetite for people's limited conflict without working people against foreign resources, Ukraine abilities, highly constrained market, highly constrained, no energy war. Not all reasons to be conscious. Countries love their resources so they don't go to war. Also, war would be way too terrible on them. And Russia, China are safe. 10 out of 20. Russia, China continue to be in peaceful peninsula regardless of spending reviving the security and nuclear energy cooperation. Nuclear security goes compromising nuclear cooperation. 3, common interest, transparency, terrorists need to make weapons. Market weapons.
You sent those?
Those
Those
are
are
the
the
two.
bottom of the 2AC.
Oh,
Is the advantage I didn't get to.
I understand. Okay, we had 950.
The order is the expert's advantage, where the like turn was, the NRC turn.
That's nuclear bad.
Yeah. Yep. Then exports, which,
That's Japan, right?
yeah,
Okay.
and then energy,
Right.
and then T.
Wait, the NRC disad, then the Japan, Taiwan disad, impact turn, then the energy advantage, and then T.
Not good. Yeah, good.
Warming causes extinction, non-linear feedback loops, trigger pandemics, resource and border conflicts, and ecosystem collapse, only RF, science and scientific, Vandenberg drop, nuclear fires cause extinction, nuclear plant failures, receives 400 times more radiation than nuclear powers and shreds global diversity. Now, the DA, extend Gilbert, the entire dissent relies on the thesis of crowd out, and they continue to crowd that that's a study that is completely bunk. Our author says the statistical analysis is flawed, the sample size is too small, and ignores all sample, and ignores all history, i.e. tons of countries that do both now. They've replicated Sovacool's research and found several flaws and aren't the only ones present. In 22, maybe reproduced results by Sovacool, several flaws in the model, statistical analysis, notably correlation between renewable and nuclear felt criticized the methodology, similar Wagner. 10 results in direct contradiction. This paper supplementary, specifically no evidence for crowding out detected after reproduced found considerably flawed. Both mistakes in analysis and inconsistencies. The logic fraction of nuclear renewables is not a good particular satisfied tautological reaction analysis reflects nothing other than relation crowding out consistent with data both electric renewables, hydroelectric. Further, any three positive variables can always find two pairs negatively correlated. Thus, no surprise has nothing to do with causality. The only answer was you need qualified F2. Our guys are PhDs and nuclear project specialists, and ignore the card that nuclear industry is always lying. Our evidence doesn't come from them. It's scientists and empirical. Now the link wall transmission is wrong. Nuclear is key to microgrids, which would be below. Policy link is wrong. NRC can't trade off with EPA or BLM to renewables. Employment also doesn't make sense because NRC workers don't do wind and solar. Investment link is wrong. F doesn't change investment decision. Other countries make their offense inevitable by building nuclear. The grid impact isn't about U.S. salary tax. It's about critical infrastructure failures cascading globally because that's the only way it causes actual extinction. Exports. Nuclear terror causes extinction. NC3 system failure shifts states toward nuclear use, which creates action-reaction spirals that draw in great powers, which is haze. Yes, motive. RF says there's several non-state actors that are motivated and able in the status quo, which is haze. Now, I will explicitly concede from the other page that Russia and China are peaceful, which zeroes the impact of this scenario, but there's no link to the term. One, our advantage is the opposite of their link. We said pursuing unipolarity and security commitments will cause regional wars over hegemony. Plan creates energy independence that increases their diplomatic and transactional standing, but there's zero reason that it makes it look like the U.S. security commitment is stable. Two, no reason Japan stops rearming in response to the plan, even if they miraculously conclude that the U.S. security commitment is now credible. They've read unique discards that say they're doing the status quo. Military programs are not the kind of thing you can just turn around and reverse all willy-nilly because it requires stable funding and contractual obligations. No evidence says Japan alone deters China. So their only link card says that they must coordinate with the U.S., but also concedes invasion will never happen. Mitsuda in 1223 reviewed alongside the United States component of U.S. defense strategy. The United States and Japan have been in measures such as many of the measures are still in a nation stage. You can face political and organizational hurdles for full implementation. There's no Taiwan invasion. The island's hardened military capability, resilient economy, and robust democracy ensure lethal response even if U.S. support diminishes, which is Gordon. Taiwan's military capabilities are strong, and G's too unhappy with this military to risk conflict. Gordon in 24. Taiwan not standing still. Leadership agreed to strategy alignment, doctrine, force structure, and spending. Taiwan make island porcupine innovations turbocharged by lessons from Ukraine, retiring legacy system advanced firms, working to expand all access to cutting-edge technology capabilities, increase defense spending 3% of GDP, and 5 by 2030. U.S. and partners support designs provided aid by drawing directly from existing stockpiles, authorized financing. Beijing still confronts and foreign challenges. Top military officials purge on changes on charge of corruption, disloyalty. Xi not have the military he wants, does not seem to trust military. Has Taiwan and his political solidarity ensures Chinese propaganda efforts fail. Gordon 24. Taiwan better prepared for infiltration. China devoting research to influence, but opinion little efforts are working very few. In Taiwan, susceptible propaganda more aggressive. Beijing become more. Beijing repel people of Taiwan. Beijing efforts invoke cringe. Taiwan's politics and pure consensual on the big issues. No political party support. Unification. Now, the energy advantage proper deterrence collapse is inevitable without AI operationalization. Failure to effectively integrate AI encourages Russian and Chinese gray zone probing that current systems are unable to detect that cause nuclear use through miscalc. Doesn't answer our scenario because it's about AI preventing future wars. Their assets are peaceful now, they won't be in the future. It solves the DA impact. Energy wars cause extinction. Global hotspots are on the brink now, and energy demand is expected to increase 50%. Competition leads to regional instabilities and spill over to nuclear war, which is heat. T. Counterterm substantially references actions that directly prevent or permit bargaining. Their definitions are arbitrary, and none of the cards I've read actually draw the line between their interp and excluding our app. Our app references court precedent and says it's substantially determined by the scope of the ability to prevent or permit bargaining. If they win, the leniency might not be substantial, then it proves that qualitative definitions are impossible, and only our interp solves an impact. Precision outweighs debatability. It's only useful in a world where we're debating what the topic is actually meant to mean. Otherwise, that creates overconfident idiots who leave debate thinking that you have to protect 2% of workers to be substantial. Now, their evidence is 3 internal links. 1, they're misreading the resolution since substantially comes before strength and not workers. 2, their cards are imprecise. The Yemeni card is about gig workers. David card is about substantial contributions to foundations being 2%, not about labor. And obviously unpredictable. US code card is about benefits, not workers. The Lene evidence is about Australia and not about workers. The words and phrases is unpredictable and from the 60s, which obviously doesn't demonstrate the recurrent reality or any precedent regarding labor law. Jimenez Scotus precedent card is about substantial being qualitative in the context of patent law and not labor law. It's not about workers or anything related to the topic. The Rhodes card is about individual CBAs for grad students being substantial. It's not about workers. This Bosker card is the closest they get to a predictable definition, but it's about a single program. But also says that in this context, 15 workers was substantially 2% and proves they solved none of their opt-ins. Bosker and 24 or 50 people, 50 people organization with fewer than 750 employees. 3, scope versus strength. Measure strength by legal discretion, not simple count of workers covered. Now, defense, tons of functional limits against single agency apps. 1, precedent DAs like press powers or MQD. 2, process DAs like FLRA overstretch or midterms. 3, court DAs like sua sponte or court politics. 4, CBR picks and different protections also solve because not all of those 44 agency apps have the CBR's keyword. App ground, apps getting smaller as a natural link to net ground is empirically disproven by nukes and clean energy when everyone got smaller and the neg win rate remained high. We're reading the biggest app on the topic, so you should grow up and cut a case neg. Reasonability, judge intervention is inevitable. If we when their interp is arbitrary, then it's justification for reasonability. Competing interps are equally arbitrary because there's no bright light for it. Back to the NRC term. No accidents and it's try or die. Other countries thought they conceded all app solvency, which means experts would solve it with stronger safety. Back to T on like precision.
Competing norms don't shape it
Okay.
because nobody knows what happened in this debate.
Competing norms don't shape it because nobody knows what happens in this debate. None of their cards are actually defining it in the context of labor policy or federal workers or workers. They have just read a bunch of cards that happen to mention labor and substantial in the same context, which proves precision and all of our arbitrariness off.
605.
No, 555. Starting. You didn't go back and read a card on the NRC thing, you just
No.
said it.
Answer the like
Yeah,
accidents
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Vote negative to tell MSU to go back to the drawing board and stop engaging in clash of what is their interpretation opens the floodgates. They conceded the entirety of the Twin City overview, which says that there are 441 federal agencies, assuming that only 10% of those have cards, and still 41 fed workers asked alone, which obviously circumvents all the functional limits that they think are good, but also opens the floodgates in the private sector. You could give union rights to janitors in Puerto Rico. You could give union rights to Amazon warehouse workers in North Dakota. You could just give union rights to Starbucks workers. Just Starbucks. You could do it by one company. You could do it by one sector, and all of those under the 2% limit linked to absolutely no disads, because all of our offense is linked to large changes to the status quo and increase in unionization broadly. None of those acts obviously linked to those things, and I'll answer the ticky-tacky stuff on functional limits below. Now, the 2ER is going to go for precision and predictability that is unwinnable, even given the full scope of their offense. We have to draw a line somewhere to avoid a frankly undebatable topic. We have set the lowest possible threshold at 2% to ensure that affirmatives have to send at least some kind of a departure from the resolution. Debatability outweighs everything. The perfect is not the enemy of the good. We can decide as a community that we have to decide there's some cutoff, because giving bargaining rights to one warehouse in Wyoming is not an affirmative people can read, nor one people want to read, even if it might be the most precise reading of the resolution. It is imperative to have an anchor to neg ground. Going into the second semester, their interpretation is asking you to pretend like the word substantial is not the topic. The app can infinitely re-raise and say absolutely any threshold we set is arbitrary, so it is try or die to let the neg have some ground going into the second semester. Now, the remedy to arbitrariness is not to just delete the neg from the topic, because there's always going to be some kind of gray area. I conceded things like conditionality and K's, and lots of the community doesn't even think we should have a resolution, but that doesn't mean we sacrifice a functional activity, because there has to be some limit. The alternative is a world where we're all MSU and just want to become lawyers and get deep in ticky-tacky definitions without actually having debates about unions, which is a great topic of controversy with plenty of literature. And they conceded that predictability is not based on definitions, but instead community consensus. The community does not decide what the topic is based on the cards that MSU might have come the preseason, but instead of community norms. Yes, this is a high-profile debate. It's reported. It's a DRR between two first-round teams, so you have to set a precedent. Now, a predictable topic is not necessarily a good one. I might know that I'm going to debate asked about single workers, but that doesn't mean I have to be excited about it, because those debates aren't good anyway, even if they're predictable or precise, because the app always has the upper hand. Conceded that negative flexibility must outweigh, and this is a wholly new affirmative, which means that infinite prep and other things like a topic dies in their favor because the state's counterplan is unworkable and there's no net benefit, means you have to err negative, even if you think there's a risk of their offense. But also, we are predictable. The remedy, our interpretation is more predictable. Our 1C interrupt is a person using the term substantial in the context of workers, not another noun. It's a peer-reviewed econometric study, and the guy has a PhD that's at least to some extent predictable. But also, the Jimenez card is fantastic. It talks about how the Supreme Court interprets substantially and throws out the idea of qualitative definitions. Because it must come down to context and qualitative thresholds. But which means that you can't decide on a case-by-case basis, but you always need to assign a number. Yes, it might be about patent law, but that's irrelevant, because it's just how legal precedent dictates interpretations and says that quantitative norms are more predictable and obviously matter more, which is what they said matters for precision. Now, the internal links to precision doesn't actually matter. One was imprecise. Boo-hoo. The prototype above was enough. Our evidence might be from the 60s, but it's enough that you need to preserve a workable topic, because substantial has to be 2%. We have cards saying it does, and they have no cards they have no cards saying otherwise. But their stuff is obviously more arbitrary, because just giving bargaining rights to the NRC is just unpredictable. Now, the F ground is a nothing burger, because you conceded a large chart of possible affirmatives that I inserted in the 2C. It lists all the different sectors that meet the threshold for 2%, which includes the Federal Workers Act, which you think is a good function, which you think is a good affirmative. Now, healthcare, local government, food services, manufacturing, science and tech services, self-employed workers, waste remediation, construction, finance, insurance, transportation, educational services. Those are all diverse and super rich bodies of literature. Education was its own topic, and education was its own topic. Sectoral bargaining has tons of advantage around populism, democracy, inequality, etc. Now, the next argument was that substantially modifies. No, it doesn't, because they conceded that the word strengthen, obviously, you have to multiply it by the amount of mechanisms that strengthen includes. It can mean ban strikes, it can mean give CBR, it can mean just oversight, it could be literally anything, and multiply it out by the amount of actors. That was the top of the 2C overview, but it doesn't matter, because all this stuff we read above about what makes a good topic is the outweighs. Now, functional limits, they're all designed to be substantive reforms, obviously not enough. That means only applies to literally 2,000 people in the federal government. Now, single strategies are stale and create an unsymmetric advantage. The precedent thesis is nothing, because they're agent dependent and incidental if it's a single agency, because they can just say there's no spillover, and and politics is nothing. During Trump, obviously, there's no political capital. Age independent, case terms are not external, and Vantage Capital plan change based on agency. I think they said history, but limited topics obviously produce better debates. Dropped their examples of carbon tax or NFU are areas with rich mechanism of innovation, which does not exist for collective bargaining rights. Normal Fed workers is relevant, not random agencies, which means that they still get that out and can still debate about the things they think are good. And states is illegitimate and beat by a single card in the pre-round, cut by an affirmative that does something for some one particular state or one particular group of workers. The cap pay does not compete in the econ DA does not link to small affirmatives. Preemption is not 50-50 due to specificity, and Trump was inserted about now solvency. Advocates are not a thing, and no one cares about them. Judges, cards just need to obliquely mention collective bargainings, and judges will check in on it, and literature does not check because there are obviously single articles that exist for everything, proven by the impact overview. New apps cannot be fact-checked and cannot check if negative does not have grounds. So remember, the resolution is absolutely meaningless. Now, real reasonability, they're not reasonable as per our offense. One, no implication. The one error just said the buzzword, no description. What it means, swear will be brand new, and you should hold the line. Two, no offense. One error for not to have a reason why we should prefer it over competing interests. Our limits impact outweighs. Judge intervention is not inevitable. You should arbitrarily come and determine which one is reasonable just by coin flipping your way out of having to decide around which term for both teams. The bright line is simple. The judge just has to decide which interm is better in terms of debatability, which one is more limited and encourages better debates, which is obviously way better than flipping a coin. Go back to the substantially modifies. It doesn't mean anything because there are a ton of topical mechanisms that are sector agnostic, like recognizing a bargaining unit or making a subject of bargaining mandatory. 404.
the most limited topic, it's about the most predictable limit. The only way to ensure fair debate and debate where we learn truth and sharpen our skills is if both sides know the topic ahead of time. A smaller topic that is not determined by a predictable method is the same as saying counterinterpret only arrive as topical. Non-predictable interpretations are arbitrary because nobody knows what apps they have to prepare for, which link turns every 2-hour impact. You should default to precision because it determines predictability, especially about something as nuanced as labor policy. It's both the fairest and only practical way to determine what the topic means at the start of the season. That outweighs anything else is infinitely regressive and allows them to constantly shift interpretations from round to round with no way for the app to catch up. It also turns ground and education, which are the only true impact limits, because it means we never get deep in the literature base about any one interpretation. Only contextual precision creates topic knowledge about CVRs. Debaters learning how to research policy is key to determine truth, which is necessary to political skills that are useful in real life, not just for winning a game, which they said they value because they want to have real debates about actual unions. Lastly, in the terms limits, unpredictable ground can never be researched or prepared for in advance, which means that the limits are useless. Now, there are two framing issues. First, precision turns their offense, but limits can never turn precision or create a predictable topic, which means you know that offense can only flow in one direction and only we access their stuff. Second, internal links, not impact, should be how you decide the debate. It's like any other debate where the link magnitude affects the overall risk of the impact. You should instead care about our internal link to predictability versus their internal link to limits. You would never vote on, even if the app links zero risk of a link, you would never win on, but nuclear war is so big. So you know that link defense has to matter, but the tuner did not mention our counterinterpret, did not say it was precise, which means we have reasons that their interpretation is not precise, but they have none of the inverse. Now the internal link to precision I'm going for is just that their cards are terrible. They are not about the topic in a way that should matter. Our internal link, our counter interpretation is about substantially in the context of CVRs. It says specifically that it compares things that were and were not substantial, so it has intent to define, include, and exclude. Their cards are not. The threshold is the ability to look at the negative card doc and conclusively determine that we should not have had any rights to cut this money. See, at the start of the season, the tuner dropped every indictment outside of the Jimenez evidence, so you know that we're ahead on the internal links first. The Jimenez SCOTUS precedent card is about substantial being qualitative in the context of patent law, not labor law. It does not intend to set a precedent for all cases. It's not about workers or anything about the topic. Also, our interpretation is also citing precedent, which means that it's not an auto-negative precedent ballot. Second, they cannot go for words and phrases, and we cite precedent as our interpretability. Their card is 40 years behind on labor precedent. It's not in the context of work or labor or anything else. 3, they dropped a Foster recoding that proves they unlimited the topic just as much. Their substantial definition says that 15 people were substantial, which means that you know their interpretation is arbitrary and self-serving. It's about a single program. It says that 2% was enough. The 2NR did not extend any of their other cards by name, which means these are the only cards you can evaluate in the neg card doc, and they dropped every 1AR index to all the other cards they read. You know that our interpretation has a larger internal link to our impact, which means it has to outweigh because only the affirmative has told you how you should do impact calculus at the end of the debate. Now, the 2NR overview sounded pretty, but it's not how debates would actually play out. Telling MSU that, MSU is not asking you to pretend that substantially is not in the resolution. I'm just asking you to think about all of the percentages that have ever been read in the last 10 decades and realize, maybe it changed a lot, and maybe I should not draw a line at 2%, but instead draw it at, just cut a damn case net. Community norms are relevant, high-profile debate. Nobody knows why you won or lost, and even if they watch the debate, they're not going to think that that's how topicality works or other debates should have impacted it. Now the defense, the 200 overview did a good job, but was mostly fear-mongering of their terminal impacts. None of the worst-case scenarios would ever play out under our model. Do not weigh the 200's overview description of debate against their counter-interpretation because it would just never happen. It would be like weighing the full risk of a nuke war impact because it feels scary, even though the other teams have hotlines check, leaders have off-ramps, and it won't cause distinction. First, they only need one strategy against single-agency apps. They could cut a dissent about the app's precedents like press powers or MQD. They could cut a dissent about the app's process like FLRA overstretch or midterms. They could cut a court strategy with a counterplan like traditional sunsets or sunbursting, and it just sounds like core politics, or you could cut a case term like the app legitimates Trump's agenda, which Dartmouth and Kansas have both read against us. They could keep reading their CVR plank, which has their CVR counterplan, which has 15 planks that rehires people in funds agencies, and all of their case defense still applies. All of these things demonstrate that everyone has a Dropbox against full government fed workers, and we're already losing debates which that prove going for topicality is not a necessary check on infinite affirmatives, but it's just a cop-out to avoid substantive debating. The 200 line by line here was too shallow. The precedent arguments don't rely on agency because you can read spillover cards about the effect of the plan. Politics doesn't require Trump PC. You could go for core politics or bipartisan like they read, and advantage counterplans apply because it's about the federal workforce in general. Second, history every year since the dawn of time, apps have gotten smaller over the course of the season with no
no catastrophic impact on the negative winner. It empirically disproves the 2NR's limits disaster because we've never had the issue before. Last year, teams started with economy-wide carbon tax and ended up bringing specific industries. Michigan read data centers, shipping, airlines. Kansas read luxury items. Dartmouth and Emory read something about capital assets. The same thing happened on nukes. We started with the line of few, but then broke China only, Iran only, North Korea only, and more. And this year, we're not even the first to read single agency. Georgetown read TSA, and Kansas has EPA only, which means that the negative ground must exist. Even then, the advantages are read inevitably, so you have to answer it. Third, grow up. Trump's attack on the civil service is the biggest act of union busting in history. The fact that we slightly narrow the scope doesn't change the sheer amount of literature on the subject, and the vast majority still applies. If that's not enough net ground, then voting on topicality won't save them either. The act affects the entirety of the NRC and all of our nuclear and energy topics, which are the past 2 years of resolutions. If that is not enough net ground, then there is just no true terminal impact to their offense. Lastly, reasonability. You should err on the side of it. We clearly did not make the debate impossible, and they had sufficient net ground and predict the 1AC, which means that voting on topicality only comes at the expense of in-depth debates about the affirmative, which is what they actually want, which demonstrated must outweigh because that is the end point of their offense, and the implication was in the 1AR, which was that it causes substance crowd, which turns all of their offense. So if you think that there's any risk that our internal link defense is sufficient, our internal link precision is unmitigated. There's no